I have three guesstimates as to why it's not really right. So point number one is maybe we are getting the doses wrong. This is my first suspicion, that the dose of minocycline that we are using is probably wrong. If you look at the package insert, the dose that you have mentioned is give a bolus dose of 200 milligrams followed by 100 milligrams BD to reach a trough value of 1.4 to 1.8 microgram per ml, as per even this was also discussed by the earlier speaker. To get a trough concentration of 1.4 to 1.8, you dose them 100 milligrams twice a day. And the primary pharmacodynamic index was AUC by MIC. But if you look at the usual dose down, it's given 200 followed by 100 BD. This is exactly what we are talking, not to exceed 400 milligrams in 24 hours. Now, what's very important for us to understand is that the pulmonary penetration ratios of minocycline and humans of penetration ratio of minocycline in the lung in humans and mice were very, very similar. But if you want to get AUC of the epithelial lining fluid of 0 to 24 of MIC for maintaining log kill, we require dose much higher than 100 milligram BD. So in mice, we require higher doses because the epithelial lining fluid is not getting saturated with the kind of concentration that is required to kill Acinetobacter. And since the penetration ratios of humans and mice are kind of similar, I think this might be the case even in human beings. Probably to get to the AUC by MIC of 410, we probably require a higher dose of minocycline. So that is why the package insert actually says 400 milligrams is not to be exceeded. So we may achieve around 400 milligrams is what it looks like in these cases. Point number two, maybe it's related to the penetration or the reach. Now, if you look at this study, it's seen very clearly that those patients who have diabetes, the tissue penetration of various antibiotics, including vancomycin, is not very good. So diabetic patients don't achieve tissue concentration in most of your antibiotics, that is plasma or tissue concentration is not achieved with diabetic patients. So probably the dose, and mind you, the doses of all these antibiotics are based on healthy individuals. They are not based on sick individuals. So if you have diabetic patients, probably we may need to increase the dose in order to penetrate the tissue well, even though the drug is lipophilic. The third point that I feel probably why we are not using a higher dose is maybe it's the scare of toxicity to dose higher with big time sepsis is what it looks like. Well, look at the product insert. The product insert says initial dose of 200 then 100 BD, and otherwise they say 4 milligram per kilogram. Now when you say 4 milligram per kilogram, an average 70 kilo individual will require 140 milligram per dose. Why are we dosing them 100 milligram if that is the case? And you add to that the augmented creatinine clearance that we get in septic patients, the low proteins that we get in septic patients, the resuscitation adding to the volume of distribution there, and the capillary leak. 100 milligram is not sufficient. In fact, please understand, patients have been getting 800 milligrams of minocycline daily in a clinical trial for acute spinal cord injury to prevent as neuroprotectant. So it is not unsafe. Otherwise, a trial like this wouldn't have got clearance. More than 600 milligrams is given for a pimple. So why are you worried about giving 200 milligrams BD? So I don't think that higher dose will be a problem, especially because look at my last month's sample. My last month's sample actually shows Acinetobacter baumannii, which is sensitive or intermediate to minocycline and resistant to everything else, including Klebsiella pneumonia. Look at Klebsiella pneumonia. 23 carbapenemase producers, 10 sensitive, 8 intermediate, only 18 resistant. And 50 to 60% of my patients that are carbapenem resistant or colistin resistant are sensitive to minocycline. And that is why this particular drug is of great importance, especially if used in the right proportion.